with postponement. I'm going to go into executive session to discuss the leases with the United Nations and with the United Nations. So first item on the agenda is minutes of the meeting, March 20th. Get a motion?
Move to accept. Second.
Any objections? Agreed to. Next item on the agenda is Governance and Compensation Committee report. To Rob Cole, Executive VP to.
Yeah, the committee met on September 9th. The two agenda items is typically the case. We have an annual review of the corporation's mission statement, and then the compensation and benefits program. There was one slight change we made to the mission statement this year. It's remained pretty much consistent from the beginning. We think it's very expansive and inclusive, but we just added a reference to consolidated campus in proximity to UN headquarters. You'll just see that highlighted in the page there. That kind of goes back to the original purpose of the UNDC to have a campus environment for the UN next to the headquarters. So that's a suggested change. But we need, unless there are questions, comments, we would ask for approval of the mission statement, which is then sent to the state.
You need a motion?
Yeah.
So move.
Seconded.
Second.
Okay, no one against. Unanimous in favor. Next item is the audit committee report. Rob, which one?
Yeah, there was an audit committee meeting September 10th. The agenda is provided and included the Form 990 return, which the corporation files annually as a 501(c)(3). We have Warren Ruppel from our audit firm, CBIZ, is on the screen. His firm prepares the Form 990 with the corporation. Introduced Warren, and if you want to comment.
Warren, you attended the meeting and presented it, so give us a summary.
Yeah, the summary is that it's your 990 return is a very straightforward return. There's a series of governance questions that are well answered very positively. There's financial information there, which essentially ties into your December 31st, 2023 financial statements. And we reviewed the return in a little bit of detail with the committee. They had some useful suggestions for some of the terminology that was used in the return that will be changing. And that's really all I wanted to say about it, unless someone has questions.
You will note that none of the directors receive any compensation or reimbursements of expenses. So just salaries of the corporation, operations of the corporation, but none of the directors receive any compensation. So next item.
So we need a
I'm sorry, motion. Can we get a motion for approval? Seconded? Seconded. Any against? Okay, unanimous.
And let me just, the other subject was CBIZ will be doing the audit for 2024 as well. So that was presented at the audit committee meeting. And the report would be issued next March 2025, the audit report.
Any comments from CBIZ?
No, I think that sums it up. That's a standard procedure for us to go through the audit plan with the audit committee prior to the audit. And that's what we did. And look forward to performing the audit next year.
Maybe you repeat again who CBIZ is after the merger and how many auditing members do you have in your firm?
Yeah, it's CBIZ is a national organization. They acquired us, Marks Paneth, your prior auditor, several years ago. And we've just recently changed our name from Meyer Hoffman McCann, which was the CPA practice, to CBIZ CPAs. So we audited a number of governments in the New York City area and around the country, Green Better, Park City Authority, Hudson Yards Development Corporation, School Construction Authority, et cetera, Governor's Island, Brooklyn Bridge Park. So we have a lot of experience in the space, and we value UNDC as one of our clients. I think overall we have about 6,500 employees nationwide. And right now we're the 12th largest accounting firm in the country. And we've announced we're in negotiations to acquire another firm called Markham, which has a large New York presence. And when that deal closes, we'll be the 7th largest accounting firm in the country.
And they've also, the firm has been involved in several UNDC financings, so we think there's real value in having them for this financing as well. We've discussed it.
Just a comment for the audit. Basically, the last audit showed there are no notes to the corporation. Is that correct?
No management. Yeah, no management recommendations. No management letter comments.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Could we next item on the agenda, Jessica?
I'm the next item on the agenda.
Absolutely.
Glad I made that entry.
Next item is the Finance Committee, another committee meeting, met September 10th. Basically to review the 6-month investment report from our investment advisor, PFM Asset Management. Marty Hammond from PFM is on the screen there and worked with him for a number of years. Marty, do you want to give it just a brief overview on, we have the executive summary of this firm. There's been a rate cut, right?
Just
saw that. I had said in another client meeting last week
Yeah.
that I thought 50 basis points and everyone in the room laughed. And I was like, oh, okay. So that was good to see. Yeah, Rob, do you want to do you want us to give a quick update?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also important going forward. PFM will be managing the proceeds of the bond financing, so that's going to take a lot of strategic coordination among all the various financial teams to ladder that properly as funds come in and go out for work we're doing and tenant improvement allowances and other things. And so we've had discussions with PFM over probably the past 6 months with Chuck's team putting this all together.
That's right.
I'll let you do just a quick description on where we are.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, thank you. And Ali Kasha is joining me today, and Ali does a great job for us. She covered that last meeting, and I'm going to quickly pass the mic to her and ask her to maybe give a 60-second overview of the meeting we had just, I guess it was about a week ago.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, Marty. Hi, everyone. As you said, I'm Ali Kasha. I've been on the relationship for almost about a year now. Just to repeat what we mentioned in our committee meeting last week, the UNDC portfolio is fully in compliance with local regulations and the investment policy that you all have put in place. The portfolio is invested purely in U.S. Treasuries that are backed by the full faith of the U.S. government as well. We did obviously just see a rate cut, very fresh, just about 10 minutes ago now. So we did drop by about 50 basis points to a target rate of 4.75 to 5%. That being said, the rates still have been high, which has led to higher earnings in the portfolio over the recent period. Also happy to take any questions you and the committee may have.
Well, just in summary, I think the board sees we have $125 million approximately under surpluses, and those are mainly going to be used for the financing for the development of the building. There's a question here, Jessica.
Thank you. So it's a big picture question. Understanding that in Article 2 of permissible investments in the investment policy document, investment guidelines, document allows different investment vehicles to be purchased and held, specifically in 3.3, 3.4, and so forth. And seeing that the portfolio is entirely in U.S. Treasury bonds, and please forgive me, PFM, for asking this question, but it's a sort of low-hanging fruit question. With all of the dollars, except for the ones that are in the JP Morgan Chase account, which I think was $55 million, the balance of the numbers all in Treasury bonds, forgive me for a second. Why are we spending so much on fees for an investment manager to buy T-bills?
Good question. Because they constantly review what we're doing, and they also come up with recommendations of opportunities.
How often have we pursued other alternative and other
We
opportunities?
follow the state guideline, maybe you want to look it up.
Yeah, I mean, the state is very strict on, it's New York State control of what you can invest in. So you can't kind of throw money into individual stocks and such. So we've
You
been.
know that that's why there's Article 3.
Yeah, so, we've looked at commercial papers permitted and Fannie Mae Act. Originally, I think way back when the corporation sort of invested on its own in treasuries. We thought it was important, they do ladder the investments and come up with kind of a strategic plan based on portfolios. The debt service fund is 6-month duration, but the renewal replacement fund is longer surplus fund.
But aren't there funds that hold exclusively treasury bills in the marketplace that match those durations that aren't?
The Chase fund is a money market invested in treasuries. But that's short-term treasuries. So I don't,
I think
I can let them speak a little more to that. That offers a rate that's going to drop. It could be PFM will advise go long on and pick up some additional basis points. I know there's given the amount of the investment amount that's coming up, we've talked about kind of a different fee structure also.
You have.
Just based on the size of, it's about $350 million. It'll be invested, rapidly that will deplete as it's paid out.
Understood. And we all understand that funds that invest in T-bills is like, I don't know, a 2 to 3 basis point fee. And I don't know what we're paying, but I know it's a lot more than that.
Right.
So maybe it's a question to the finance committee at large is, can we be nimble enough and maybe the answer is no, to think about what sits under an investment manager with a higher fee portfolio versus the balance? Maybe leave it at that.
maybe the answer is yes, especially with the 50-point drop. We should really begin to review more carefully. We were lucky on the fact that for the Chase Fund and others, we've been ranging over 4.5%. And policy, we were ranging 4.5% approximately on the treasuries in the short term. And the guideline, the essence was a sense to try to be as safe as possible. And the treasuries is the safest investments. There are other kinds of investments that are useful. We've had discussions various times about it, but I think it needs a review again. It's a good point to follow up, especially now.
I appreciate that.
Next item on the agenda. Management. Rob?
Yeah, so that's tab 5 of the book. What we provided is at 6 months through June 30th this year, the financial results. That's compared to the 6 months June 30th, 2023. You end up seeing a decrease in net revenues of about $3 million, and that's mainly attributable because the UN leases expired in March of 2023. They were renewed for only about half the space in the UN Plaza building. So you started to see you collecting rent on half the building at that point. That was only for 3 months at that time. If you look year over year, now you're going to start to see a bigger drop as revenues have fall. That drop was countered by a big increase in investment income. Interest rates were much higher. But that's sort of the main story there. Is any questions? on that? So if not, I can sort of move on to a more looking forward. We have to file a budget with the state of New York every year. It's a board approved budget gets submitted to New York State. It's on our website. and that is in tab B. It roughly follows kind of a state format. I should point out, this assumes we have leases that are signed. If the leases become effective in January of next year, that we finance the project in the quarter. If that doesn't happen or things change, we would of course amend this budget time, but we have to make various assumptions. These are the same assumptions that Chuck has been using in his budgets and projections. Same thing that we've given appraisers for building appraisal. So everything's kind of consistent across the board. So we have to submit a 2025 budget and then projections going forward for the next 3 years, which is through 2028. Just a few highlights to point out. You'll see a drop in revenues for building operations in 26. And that's mainly because UNICEF becomes the owner of Greenland Plaza in July of that year. So you can use that rent. You also would see a kind of corresponding decrease in expenses because you're no longer operating that building. Below that, we have interest income. It's high in 2025, and then it drops as money that's invested from bond is used.
I think it's important to note that that will take up an executive session, a discussion on leases. But all these projections are an assumption that the leases with the UN and UNDP will be signed. We thought that would be the end of September, but we'll talk about that in the executive session. And if you remember the letter of intent, the minute the lease is not finished, we then go out for financing. It's estimated to take approximately 90 days to finalize the financing. So the goal is to be done by the end of December, something which we'll discuss in the executive session. And I can report basically in principle, the reviews that have been going on are in budget vis-a-vis the construction work that has to go on. So that's something we'll take up in the exec committee. We'll use up a big chunk of reserves, plus the money that we're going to raise through the bond financing. And Chuck will give a report from forthright where we stand in relation. Note the footnotes. Because if the leases are not completed, then this budget has to be changed. It's the effect then on buildings. And the lease from the UN expires September 30th, 2024. And UNDP is a subtenant. We are negotiating with UN, UNDP with new leases in DC2. As Rob mentioned, UNICEF, which is a deal we made many years ago, gets ownership of this building. And the minute they get the ownership of the building, I think we pay off all the bonds. So all bonds outstanding by 2026, 27, 26, yeah, 6 is paid off, right, Chuck?
Or this finished.
As part of this financing, we'll pay them off in the financing.
Okay.
I have a specific question about expenses in this forward projection. It's on page 3 of 6. So the question is, and maybe I'm looking at it again, and maybe it's not, it does drop, but maybe not significant enough in my head. I was surprised that the professional fees, which is the second line, only drops by $1 million from 2025 to 2026 and starts climbing again, given that the intensity and multi-headed professional groups, and quite frankly, expensive ones appropriately for a complex transaction and series of transactions, why doesn't it drop more from 2025 to 2026?
We have to start paying next year.
I would say look at 2024, which is where you have the bulk of legal fees. And then, we're anticipating we're gonna have to release a lot of the building at Wendell Plaza. So there's gonna be attorney's fees to negotiate new leases.
Let me ask it differently. What was it in, let's start with, what was it in 2024? Is that number here?
A lot.
About that number.
About that same number?
Capital way or?
I think the budget hearing is the significant amount of the legal fees have been being paid from the administrative budget rather than the capital budget. But probably for accounting reasons. And so for be reasonably conservative, I believe that Jorge projected it being flat during the construction period. And it starts dropping after the construction period. If you see our 15-year projection, you'll see this number starts to drop. Because during the construction period, we'll continue to have the legal fees for leasing 3 or 4 spaces to be leased out. So there's a drop built in, it's just later.
Like in 2029 later.
Yeah, post-construction.
We pay
What percent of the current like bill, aggregate professional fee bill is due to leasing? It can't be more than like, is it like 60%? That like
It's at least half.
that it stayed, so then why, I'm just having trouble with the numbers a little bit. If 2024 is X,
Yeah,
and then it's sitting rather flat, right, for the next 4 years, 25 through 28. And you're saying it drops in 2029 because the leasing activity drops. But if leasing is only, I'm making it up, right? I don't know. If it's only 30%, why, what's happening?
I mean, the bulk of legal fees would be on leasing, I would say. You know, if you're not doing this big project, your legal fees are sort of more day to day.
Construction agreement,
It's construction.
it's legal, right?
Yeah.
It's big bills.
You know, most of that's gonna be done this,
And so it's hard to
yeah,
interpret these numbers perhaps without 2024 and 2029. And that, like, I understand it's not required, so like, that's an extra sort of question, but it'd be something I'd like to understand better.
Yeah.
I think this will give you the detail.
Bottom line is that we've had substantial expenses legally this year, especially negotiations, and also consulting vis-a-vis the finance. They will stay constant probably till the end of the year. And then for the leasing that we have left, we're leasing, UN basically has a whole building, so it's taken care of. UNDP, they're taking 400-something thousand square feet out of 600-something thousand square feet. So how many tenants will we have?
15, 20.
Okay, we'll have a form lease, basically for all of them. And if we can do the negotiations in the house would be great. If we have to use outside counsel, we do have outside counsel. But the big bulk expenses till now has been the legal fees, some negotiations with the big tenants and the financing discussions with.
That's exactly my point. So why doesn't it drop? Right.
Yeah, I mean, we've been negotiating leases with 2 separate law firms, right? For the UN, for the
I
UNDP.
get it.
Yeah, I'm just saying
Yeah.
that's,
It will, but for the sake of conservatism, it hasn't been.
So one now.
It will drop, but for the sake of being conservative during the construction period,
You kept it high.
it hasn't. If you look back in the prior tab, it compares the 6 months of 23 and the 6 months of 24.
Right.
So in 24, it was a 1.2 million over the 6 months, half of which was legal and the other half of which was executive search and financial advisors and real estate consultants. Some of that drops off precipitously, some of it continues. And I think the budget exercise was leave the extra, leave some extra here just in case. If it's less, obviously it's less and flows through the bottom line.
Right.
Our goal is. to
Like really big number.
reduce-
Yeah, no, a certain amount of unpredictability of a construction.
Our goal is to reduce those fees.
Right.
And well, all of the bids, pre-fact of the bid deal. Forsyth is a negotiated a bid of what we had, same CBOC. We've done the bidding vis-a-vis what's. But they should reduce the legal fees. Hopefully.
Thanks.
All right, do we get the we find the?
yeah, so I mean, this is sort of, this is the budget for next year, the next 3 years. You know, it's that it can change. But and we're reasonably confident we're on track to achieve this. There's also on page 4, there's a schedule of long-term debt. See 2024, we've got the 2019 bonds. There's only about $14 million in principal left on those bonds. And then there's a few other small bonds. When we issue the new bonds, money we put aside from the proceeds to pay off the 15 million or so and defease those bonds. And then going forward, we'll have one issuance of bonds. 2024, about $340 million. You end up with level debt service below that of about 20 million, 20.6 million. See, going forward,
Interest only, Rob?
a few years, right?
Yeah, interest only during the first 4 to 5 years we're currently projecting.
We'll get into that in executive.
Yeah.
So we need
Okay.
approval. Any
Yeah.
other questions? Comments?
Yeah, we need. Well, the budget.
Get a
Motion to approve.
second. Any negative? Hold on. Right. We're now going to go into executive session. Regarding the